Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Mama's gonna sing you a lullaby. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Don't say a word.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Okay, so just a warning, y'all. Tonight's episode involves the rape and murder of a minor. Like, the details are very graphic, so just take caution if you're listening. This particular episode is definitely one that, like, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. I had to recenter and really woo-saw like quite a few times because it had me that mad. Like, when I was going over all the facts of the case, it just really got to me because there were just so many what the fuck moments. Like, and I know I'm usually joking around and telling y'all, "Oh, I hope you got your popcorn and your wine, or your popcorn and your drink." And don't get me wrong, I definitely got my bowl of popcorn and I got my glass on deck tonight. Like, I needed a glass or two to get through this episode. And some telling me y'all gonna need something a little bit harder too. Like, I'm actually drinking something that's a little bit harder than wine tonight. I made a mixed drink, just some little peach vodka that I had with some peach soda, a little splash of it, because this case, y'all, this shit is just that crazy. It's that cynical. It's that heinous. And, it really makes me question if old school justice could just be like brought back just for cases like this. Like, and y'all are about to see what I mean. This week's case involves Felecia Williams, aka Sugar Plum. She's the victim. Felicia Demerson, which is Felicia's mother. Ebony Wiley, she's an accomplice, and the infamous murderer, Granville Ritchie. Now, for the purpose of this episode, because the victim and her mother share the same name, I'm going to call the baby by her nickname, which was Sugar Plum. Like, the whole name thing with them having the same name reminds me of that Peter Lucas episode where everybody had the same name and it was like a mess. So it'll be a lot easier because a lot of the people honestly just called her by her nickname, which was Sugar Plum. So, all right. Y'all ready to get into it? Let's get it. Felicia Nicole Williams was born December 11th, 2004 at the University Community Hospital in Tampa, Florida, to Felicia Demerson and Jerome Rodriguez Williams. She was a healthy 8 pound and 1 ounce baby girl, and her family said that she had the perfect little brown round face. So that's how she got the name Sugar Plum. She had five sisters, Shakilia Givens, Charlicia Adams, Antonique Gervin, Jeremisha Williams, and Brenda Holder. And Brenda Holder, I believe, was her stepsister by her stepdad. At a very young age, Sugar Plum was the sweetest little girl. She was loving, kind, and she adored her family and friends. Unfortunately, there's not much to discuss on her childhood, and mainly it's because, it was taken away too early. She didn't even get an opportunity to really grow up and experience life, so there's not much to really discuss. But like I said, Sugar Plum was a good kid. She was only 9 years old, but she wasn't really your average 9-year old. She grew up in Tampa, Florida, in a working class area where she attended Edison Elementary School. She sang in the youth choir at Zion Temple Holiness Church. She was a happy kid, you know. She would ride her bike everywhere, up and down the neighborhood. And most importantly, Sugar Plum was very polite. Like she was raised right, okay? Anytime she went anywhere, she would call her mom and, she would say, "Mommy, can I go?" And she never just did anything without her mother's permission. Like the only thing that I think you could consider bad that she did, and it really wasn't bad, but she would take bread out of the house without her mom knowing, and she would go down the street and feed the ducks at the Robert L. Cole Senior Community Lake. And honestly, like I said, it's not a bad thing. She was being a kid. She liked the ducks, you know. She was better than me because ducks used to scare the shit out of me as a kid. Listen, don't judge me, okay? Judge your mammy. But Sugar Plum was generous and she loved Hello Kitty, like so much so that on her 6th birthday, her mom threw her this big Hello Kitty party and she got to invite 10 of her friends and she was decked out in Hello Kitty gear, like, the Hello Kitty gear head to toe. Like she was a really thoughtful girl. And when her mom was actually recovering from surgery, she and one of her older sisters they stayed in the house and took turns taking care of her. Like, that is so sweet. I love to see children being there for their parents, especially when they're young. Like, that is so cute. They get to play doctor and all of that, and they're trying to take care of you. I love it. They just, it's cute at that age because they want to do everything to make sure that their mommy is okay. Like, my kids are the same way. If I'm sick, they are all over me trying to make sure I'm good. Okay, listen, kids don't play about their mamas. Okay. Now, Sugar Plum at 9 years old, this girl even made her own money. She would go to this hair salon that was close by, and the owner would let her sweep and take out the trash and everything, and she would give her money. Like, I mean, this little girl was blessed, and she had a gracious heart. She was always giving. Her mom talked about how on one Christmas, she literally got 3 bicycles. Like, how you what? Like, her father had given her one, and then she won the other 2 in charity bids. Like, I would have been bragging had I got 3 bikes for Christmas. But she gave one of them to her best friend who lived across the street. And, admittedly, she did keep the other 2 for herself. Baby girl was like, listen, I need options. I'm about to stun on everybody and switch these bikes up every other day. I'm going to ride this one this day. I'm going to ride this one the next. But, it was really cute. And like the money that she made sweeping up hair and taking out trash and everything, she used it to buy her mom a Christmas gift that was like some bath washing lotions, and then she gave her this cute little handmade Christmas card. Listen, my kids are spoiled rotten and they get everything they want, but let me expect a gift from them. I might as well be waiting on the second coming. So this cute little baby was doing it, okay? So, by all accounts, Sugar Plum was a sweet kid, like one that many parents would want their child to be like. So, how did a sweet child like Sugar Plum end up murdered? It all started with a woman that was foolishly in lust, thinking it was love. A woman that put a man before doing what was right. A woman named Ebony. Ebony Alicia Wiley was born June 1st, 1990 in Tampa, Florida. Now, there's not much on her history or her childhood. I do know that she had 2 kids. I'm not sure if she had them before all of this went down or after, but I did do a little bit of research and saw that in 2012, according to a report from the Hillsborough Sheriff's Office, Ebony was held for a mental evaluation after experiencing hallucinations. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. She had told everyone that Satan was trapping her. Like, I'm really wondering what caused that because, like, that's some crazy shit. Like, what led to that break? What led you to just say Satan was trapping you? Because that's some shit right there. Now she did have a little bit of a record. So when she started talking crazy, she's like, "Oh, Satan is trapping my mind. It's Satan, I tell you." And the sheriff was like, "Yeah, we gonna put this chick in a mental facility and hold her ass because this bitch is talking crazy." But after 72 hours, she gets released, and time goes on, and she actually ends up moving into the same neighborhood as Felicia and Sugar Plum and her family. she had a job at a nursing home nearby, and she was really, doing good. Now, at the time that all of this happened, Ebony is all but 23 years old. And she had gotten really close with Sugar Plum's family. Sometimes she would come and get Sugar Plum and, take her to church on Fridays, or, she would babysit her and spend time with her. They would go out to eat, like all these different things. She considered herself Sugar Plum's godmother. Now, notice I said she considered herself that. Okay. Very important to remember. Anyway, this is somebody that Felicia trusted around her child. Like, she hadn't really given her any reason not to, so, she's letting her take care of Sugar Plum and, babysit her and take her to church and everything. And Sugar Plum loved her. So, fast forward to May 13th, 2014. Ebony and one of Sugar Plum's sisters, who I believe it was Jeremicia, they're walking down the road and they're headed to the store. They're walking and a car pulls up. It's this silver 1998 Lexus, and inside, Ebony sees this brown skinned man. So he pulls up and he's all, what's happening, baby? How you doing? This my name Trevor. Listen, that's okay, that's the best attempt I can do for a Jamaican accent. Okay. It was probably sucky, but still. But he pulls up and he starts spitting game to her. And Ebony, she's all grinning and everything, and she's just smitten. Like, wait, did I say smitten? Oh my damn. Whew, okay. But she's peeping him and she's thinking, oh, he fine. And he got a Lexus. Okay then. So they exchange numbers, and like a few minutes later, he calls her and they start getting to know each other and everything over the phone. They talking and, caking it up. She goes back home and she's still talking to him on the phone. And, he's like, oh, you so beautiful, baby. So fine. I'm looking for wifey. And her ass is feeding right into it. And she's like, yeah, I want me a good man. I want me a family man, one I can raise kids with. And, he's telling her what she wants to hear. Like, he's like, oh, baby, I can be that man for your girl. You know what? Why don't I come through and pick you up? Again, that's a sucky accent. Sorry. Now, remember, y'all, this is the day that they met, okay? So he tells her that he wants to come scoop her up. And she's like, okay, then, cool. So he comes to pick her up, hops in the Lexus, and he leaves from his apartment and drives the 20 minutes from Temple Terrace, where he lives, to Tampa, to where she lives, to pick her up. And they go back to his crib and he gives her some ecstasy. Like pop the molly, I'm sweating. Woo! And she takes it. Mind you, she don't know nothing about this nigga but his name. And well, I'ma let y'all be the judge on that. We gonna get into that in a few, cause shit. Like I said, she don't know nothing about this nigga but his name. But she takes the X and she starts feeling good, like it's running through her system. And then on top of that, they drinking Hennessy. He's whispering sweet nothings in her ear. He's like, damn, baby, you so fine. I gotta have you right now. You wifey. I wanna be with you. I'm single. Let's do something. Let's make this happen. And she's all, ooh, for real, baby. Like she in love, okay? No, the fuck she not. She in lust. But y'all know what y'all know how to go. So y'all know what ended up happening. She went ahead and busted that thing on open for him. Yup. They fucked on the first night. And I'm like, really? You just met this nigga a couple of hours ago. He come to pick you up after barely spitting any game. You go to his crib, which is probably like the only right thing that she did. But even still, like you go to his crib and then this nigga gives you X. Like you don't know if it's laced with anything, you don't know if it's anything in it. He give you a pill and you take it. And immediately I am already thinking,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
Look, I know it's early on, but y'all gonna hear that a couple of times tonight, okay? Because what the hell is wrong with you? You don't know this man from a hole in the wall, yo. Like, you don't know where that damn Molly came from. You don't even know if it was Molly. You just popped a fucking pill and then you start getting extra horny and shit. Like, you dummy. Then you start sipping on Hennessy, and we all know once you get that Henny in your system, it's a wrap. But you take it and you don't know what it can do to you. But again, she's dumb and in love. And after one day, not even a full day, like after some hours, like she's like, oh my God, this gonna be my husband. Like, I mean, like she literally went into her phone and changed his name as my husband. Girl, what? What? He your husband after one day? Like, I would expect some 10-year-old girl to do some shit like that, not a 23-year-old woman. Like, come on. Like, that don't, Y'all, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, do you not know how to get to know somebody? Like, have you not had a relationship in a long time? Because all it took for you to fuck was some compliments. Oh, and of course, being drugged up. Like, that didn't ring any alarms for you. This nigga gave you drugs. He altered your state of mind, and you just said, okay. It's stupid. So they have sex, and he drops her back off at her crib. Like, now, another question, like I said, I don't know if she had the kids before when all of this happened, but if she did, I'm wondering who the hell was watching her kids. Because at 23, your kids couldn't have been that old. Like, I mean, and they're not really mentioned in the court documents like that, but she definitely had two kids, and they said that they were small. So I'm like, okay, either you had them before all this shit went down, or you had them immediately after. But if you did have them before, where the fuck were they? Like, maybe, I don't know if Felicia was babysitting them or something. Probably not, but I don't know. But anyway, Trevor dropped her back off, and for the next couple of days they're texting and talking on the phone, and Ebony's falling head over heels in love, or again, lust, because apparently he put that thing on her. I don't know. And I get it, to an extent, because, when you first meet somebody and everything is fresh and you texting each other all day, calling each other all day, all night, sending each other cute little messages. I mean, I've been guilty of it. Hell, we've all done it. Everything is fresh, everything is new. You're seeing the representative that they want you to see. You know, you're seeing what they want you to see. You're seeing, or you're meeting who they want you to meet. But eventually you do see the real them. So at this point, she's happy because she's seeing everything he wants her to see. He wants her to see these things about him so that he can, lure her in. So they spend the next couple of days talking, and Ebony is really opening up to him, like so much so that she starts talking about Sugar Plum. And Ebony's talking about how she's upset with her because apparently Sugar Plum had showed up to the nursing home where she worked during school hours. And she's telling him, I can't believe this girl came to my job. She almost got me fired, babe. Like, you know what? I should call HRS on her ass and report her. And by the way, HRS is like the department that handles truancy for kids and all of that. Now, while I understand that she showed up to your job and skipped school, you threatening to call HRS is ridiculous, because why didn't you call her mama? Why didn't you tell her what was going on? But Ebony takes it a step further, and she tells Trevor about how Sugar Plum was stealing and all of this kind of crazy shit, which I really find hard to believe, because that just there was nothing that said that Sugar Plum was that type of child. And newsflash, Ebony, Sugar Plum ain't your child in the first place. So instead of you venting to a nigga that you barely know, you should have been talking to Felecia, her mama. Cause sis, did you talk about your own kids to that extent? Doubtful. Anywho, she's venting and she's like, I'ma call HRS. Yeah, that's what I'ma do. But Trevor, he tells her, nah, baby, don't do that. Maybe we should just, take her out to eat or something, and then just discuss the situation with her. And Ebony, she hears this and she is all for it. She grinning and shit, and she's like, "Ooh, my man's so concerned. He's so caring. He gonna be good with kids. Like I'm about to have me a nice little family man kind of shit." So she agrees with him that, they're going to go and talk with her. And on May 16th, 2014, Trevor goes to pick up Ebony from her apartment, once again leaving Temple Terrace and driving the 20 minutes to Tampa. Now, it's around like 3, maybe 3:30ish in the afternoon. So she hops in and then they go to pick up Sugar Plum. Now, Sugar Plum is at home with her sister, Shakilia, who is babysitting, and I'm probably saying that name wrong. I think it's Shakila, but it's spelled, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Shakila. But their mom had gone to the salon to get her hair done. So, Shakila and Sugar Plum, they just hanging out. So Ebony comes over and she left Trevor in the car. And she's like, "Hey, y'all. Hey, Sugar Plum, baby, you want to go with me to go get something to eat?" And, Sugar Plum's like, "Yeah, I'm going to call my mommy." So she calls her mom up and she asked her mom, she's like, "Mommy, can I go with Ebony to go get something to eat?" And her mom's like, "Yeah, baby, go ahead." So Sugar Plum, she happy. She get her stuff together and she goes with Ebony. They get in the car and Ebony's like, Hey, so this my new boo, Trevor. Trevor, this is Sugar Plum, the little girl I was telling you about." And so they're driving and Trevor, he starts driving towards his apartment back in Temple Terrace. And Ebony, she a little confused. And so she's like, babe, I thought you said you were gonna stop at McDonald's so that we could talk about it there. Like I thought we was all just gonna go to McDonald's and sit down." And he's like, "Oh shit, my bad. Yeah, how about we just go to Checkers or something and get us something to eat there to drive through? We almost at my crib anyway." Once again, Ebony just says fuck it and goes along with it. And she's like, "Well, okay, I guess so." So it's almost like 4 o'clock. And they go to Checkers restaurant near the Temple Terrace apartments and they get something to eat for Sugar Plum. Then they get to his apartment and they go inside and Sugar Plum is eating her food. And once again, Ebony gets drugged up. Trevor gives Ebony another ecstasy pill. And they go upstairs to his apartment and they start talking about Sugar Plum and, how Ebony is concerned about the stuff that she's doing and everything. But mind you, Ebony's mind is fucked up because she done popped some more Molly. And Trevor, he's watching. He's like, "Yeah, this bitch fucked up." And he sees, oh shit, she feeling real good. So he looks at Ebony. He says, "You know what? I want to smoke a little bit of weed, baby. You think you could get some weed for us? I want some of that good ganja gal." And Ebony, she's wanting to do anything to please her man. She's trying to get him locked down, okay? Like, so she's like, "Yeah, baby, I got you. My granddaddy got some weed, so I could just go and hit him up." So she calls her grandfather, Waldemar Vernon, and tells him what she needs. And he tells her, "Yeah, baby girl, come on. I got something for you. I got that good, got that sticky. Let's go." So she's like, "All right, bet. Sugar Plum, come on, let's go for a ride." And Trevor, he gives her the keys to his Lexus, but he's like, "Nah, gal, you can't take her because you ain't got no license and you're both about to have drugs in the car. You gotta think about that." Again, I know my accent sucks, y'all. I promise. I gotta stop doing that shit. My bad. So yeah, so he tells Ebony, he's like, "Nah, don't take her with you. You about to have drugs in the car. You ain't got no license." So she hesitates for a second, but she then agrees. And so she takes the keys to his Lexus and she leaves Sugar Plum alone with Trevor. Once Ebony is gone, Trevor immediately attacks Sugar Plum. He grabs her, and she's just sitting there watching TV, and he just started brutally beating her. He strips her out of her clothes and starts raping her. And this baby is screaming and crying for help. She's begging for him to stop. But all he does is just keep inflicting pain on her. He's hitting her in the head and her body, and he's raping her and strangling her so hard that there was like internal muscular damage and cardiogenic structures. Like the whole time he's raping her, he's choking her and beating her, punching her, and she's crying. She's trying hard to fight back. She's scratching and she's clawing, but he overpowers her. She's just a little girl. She's only 9 years old. And in a matter of 5 minutes, Felecia Nicole Williams, aka Sugar Plum, was gone, dead. Trevor is sweating and scrambling, trying to cover up what he did. So he takes Sugar Plum's body and he stuffs her in a suitcase and then he hides her in the closet. Now, this entire time, Ebony has been gone. She went to her grandfather's to go buy weed. Like, your grandfather's selling you weed. Like, I'm sorry. That was a random moment. Sorry. But, like, girl, your grandfather sold you weed. Okay. Like, that should have been free 99, but whatever. So she goes to buy the weed and she's gone for like 50 minutes. 50 fucking minutes. You left this girl with this man. And so when she comes back, she's calling her man and, she's trying to get the code to the apartment complex so that she can get back in. And she calls him and he finally answers and he gives her a code. And so, she's like, "Hey, what's Sugar Plum doing?" And he tells her, "Oh, I just gave her some money, to go to the CVS to get some candy. She ain't back yet." So on the way back, Ebony actually drives by the CVS, but she doesn't see Sugar Plum. So she gets to the apartment and she puts the code in that he gave her, but it don't work. So she's calling and calling and calling, but he's not answering the phone. And eventually somebody else came in and they put their code in and she followed behind them. Don't act like y'all ain't never done that before. Y'all know we do that all the time. We follow in behind somebody. So she gets to the apartment and Trevor's standing outside without his shirt on and he's like extra sweaty. And, when she left, he was definitely fully dressed. But of course, Ebony doesn't think anything about it. And so she goes inside. She shows him the weed. She's like, "Baby, look what I got." They roll up a blunt and they start smoking. Now she asks about Sugar Plum again, and he tells her, "Well, baby, I gave the girl some money and told her to go to the store for candy. She'll be back. Just hit the blunt." They get high and they fuck in the front of the apartment on the floor. Now, when they get done, this bitch don't even think to look through the rest of the apartment, like the closet or back porch or anywhere to see where Sugar Plum is. At this point, it's like 5 o'clock in the evening and there's no Sugar Plum still. So that's when she finally decides, like, okay, I need to call somebody. Now, initially, there was a 911 call that was made around the time, and the court documents don't say whether it came from her phone or his. But 911 was called from that area twice, but the caller hung up without saying anything. So she calls Sugar Plum's sister. She calls Shakila and she tells her Sugar Plum is missing. She went to the store and she ain't came back. I'm about to, I'm about to come back to Tampa. And Shakila freaking out. She's like, "What you mean she missing? Like, oh my God, like how is she missing?" So she calls her mom and she tells her what's going on. And she's like, "Ma, Ebony just called me and said Sugar Plum is missing. Like she don't know where she at." And Ebony knows that shit is about to hit the fan. Like she knows, man, her mama about to be mad at me. And Trevor's half-ass reassuring her, like, "Oh, babe, don't worry, I got you. But listen, we gotta come up with a story as to what happened to her and how she disappeared. Cause you can't tell her that, you was here with me, because they're gonna start talking about how bad of a person you are and how irresponsible you are. You can't tell them nothing at all. Don't you tell them that I was here. Like what you need to say is that a woman was here and that's who you came to see." And so, Ebony's like, "Yeah, that does make more sense. So if you say that it'll work, cool, babe. I got you." She's so fucking dumb. But she go along with it. So they come up with this story that Ebony was coming to see a woman named Vivian and how she had to, go take a shower. And while she was in the shower, Sugar Plum just walks out of the apartment. So Trevor gives her his mother's phone number and he says, listen, this is the number for Vivian. Just in case the cops ask, she'll corroborate the story. And so he then takes Ebony to her grandmother's house and Ebony calls Sugar Plum's sister. And she's like, listen, Sugar Plum's sister's like, yo, we need to fucking meet now. I need to know what's going on. Meet me at the liquor store. And so Ebony agrees. And so she goes and she meets with her sister at the liquor store. And that's when she tells her everything. She's like, me and Sugar Plum was hanging out. And I went to this apartment where Vivian stayed at. And, I needed to take a shower. And when I took a shower, I came back out and Sugar Plum was gone. Shakila calls her mom again and she tells her, Ebony's here. Like, meet us at the Burger King. We got to talk about this. Like, we got to find out what's going on, where Sugar Plum at, all of that. So while she's talking to Ebony, Felicia is frantic. She actually ends up flagging down one of the police officers from her location, and she in go mode. She waves down Hillsborough County Sheriff's Deputy Dominique Daniels at the intersection of Bullard Parkway and 56th Street. So she's frantic and she's telling her, my daughter just called me and said that my 9-year-old child, Felecia Williams, is missing. Our neighbor Ebony Wiley was the last one with her. We're supposed to be meeting at the Burger King. So the deputy, he goes with her and or she goes with her, excuse me, to see, what's going on. So they all meet Ebony at the Burger King and Deputy Daniels, she starts asking Ebony questions. Like she's like, can you tell me the address where you were? And Ebony says, I mean, I don't remember it offhand. And so Deputy Daniels is like, okay, well, can you try to go find it? And so Ebony agrees, and she has her friend Shelton take her to the apartment. And they go to Trevor's place, and he's outside at his car. And she tells him, babe, the cops are going to be here in a little bit. I got to get the address. But she never actually goes inside. She gets the address, and she goes back to the cop, and she gives them the address 8910 Tanglewood Trail, Temple Terrace. Now, they're in Hillsborough County at this point, but because where Sugar Plum went missing was in Temple Terrace, Deputy Daniels had to get a different officer involved because technically it's a different county. So that's when police officer Martin Ramirez takes over. He comes out to the Burger King where they're all at and he starts interviewing Felicia and Ebony right there on the spot. And Ebony, she gives him the same story. Well, I was at my friend Vivian's house and Sugar Plum was watching TV. I went to take a shower and when I came out, she was gone. And so the cops are like, okay, well, just sounds like your average runaway. So initially, they issued a bolo for her, and a bolo, being a be on the lookout. They did this because she was at the time considered a runaway and didn't really, know the area. So they start canvassing the area, looking to see where she is, but they can't find anything. No luck at all. And while Ebony is back in Tampa dealing with the police, Trevor, he goes back to the apartment and he puts Sugar Plum's body in a suitcase, like one of those rolling suitcases that you get. And he takes her outside and he puts her in the trunk of his car. And he waits until it's like really late at night and drives through Hillsborough County, through the city of Tampa toward Clearwater, Florida, across the Courtney Campbell Causeway. And so he goes over the main bridge of the causeway, and there's like this little like side access road that runs along the north side of it. He drives down about 2 miles into that, and there's this thick area where you can't really, see anything. So that's where he takes the suitcase out of the trunk of his car. He takes Sugar Plum's body out, takes her clothes off, and dumps her into the dark waters of that bay. This motherfucker literally threw this girl in the water like she was just trash. Like he just, mm, I'm sorry. Whew. Mm. This part was really hard. Like when I was reading the documents, I'm like, you stuffed her in a suitcase and You just discarded this girl. Mm. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. But yeah, after he dumps her body, he gets back into his car and he dumps her clothes along the way back. And, he dumps the suitcase out, completely getting rid of any evidence that he had of this girl anywhere near him. He drives to St. Petersburg, Florida, where he stays the night at another girl's house by the name of Kalisa Kelly. And, of course, he over there to get pussy. Like, damn, this man just told you he's not in a relationship and he's ready to wife you up and y'all out here fucking on apartment floors like some basic bitch. And then he go over to another chick's house after drugging you up and fucks on the next bitch. Yeah, that sounds real romantic. Says nobody fucking ever. Anyway, the cops, they still have this bolo out for Sugar Plum and Felecia and her family. They're praying harder than ever. They're praying that they can find her. They're printing up flyers and passing them out everywhere. That have you seen my baby? And Felicia's just like, I just want my Sugar Plum home. And so the next morning on May 17th, 2014, Detective Elmer and Detective Lee Smith, they decide to go to the apartment complex where Ebony said that, she was at, which was Doral Oaks Apartments in Temple Terrace. They get there, but nobody's at the apartment. So they said, all right, let's go to the leasing office. They get to the leasing office and they're like, hey, we're investigating a missing person. It's more like a missing child. Do you know who lives in this apartment? She was last seen over here. Can you tell us who lives there? And so the leasing office, the leasing manager looks and she's like, yeah, that's Gloria Gibson's apartment. And now they finally got a name. So they're asking, well, are you sure? Because we were told that somebody named Vivian lives here. And the manager, she was like, listen, I don't know who Vivian is, but I can tell you Gloria Gibson lives there. She gives them her contact information and they call Gloria on the phone and Gloria's like, well, yeah, that's my apartment and y'all can go look if you need to, baby, but there's nobody there now. And so they ask her, like, do you know this child? Felecia Williams, are you familiar with her? Where you at right now? We need to come have a conversation with you. And Gloria's like, well, I'm in Bradenton right now, so if y'all want to talk, y'all gonna have to come here. So they hop in the car and they head to Bradenton and they interview Gloria in person. And she gives them this little like handwritten statement that basically backs up everything that Ebony said as to, her being in the shower and the child disappearing. And again, I'm thinking like, why? Because, like, that sounds real suspicious. But Gloria also mentioned that she has a son named Trevor. So it's about 1 o'clock, and while Gloria is being interviewed, Detective Carroll and Corporal Robert Staley, they're talking to Ebony and they're laying it out for her. Like, Ebony, honey, some things you're telling us just ain't adding up. This child, she gone. And Vivian, who was that? The person who's on the lease on the apartment isn't Vivian. It's somebody by the name of Gloria. So who is Vivian? Ebony, she's trying to think on her feet and she comes up with, well, Vivian is actually a man. Say what now? And so the cops, they looking at each other like, what the hell is this girl talking about? Ebony, she got to start explaining. So she's like, see, Vivian isn't a real person. I was actually over there to see my man and his name is Trevor. And them cops are like, this shit is crazy. We need to get her down to the station. So Ebony agrees to go back to the Temple Terrace Police Department and they really start grilling her. They went they going in, they want info. They're on her ass. Like they like, who is this man that you're with? Why didn't you mention it before? Where is he now? And finally she fesses up. She tells them flat out, look, I, I went over there and I was having sex with my man. His name is Trevor. We was having sex in the shower, but when I got out, Sugar Plum was gone. Girl, why are you still lying for this man? He ain't so much as come with you to the station, checked on you, nothing. What is the reason?
reason.
What was the reason?
I had a reason.
What was the
I had a
reason?
reason.
What was the reason?
I just explained the reason.
What was the reason, bitch?
I don't need to explain myself to you. And
What was the reason?
You had to have known that the police are, gonna do their job. Like, they know Vivian isn't a real person. You yourself admitted that. They know Gloria's the leaseholder. Like, duh, they run a background. Get it together. They're gonna see, who's related to her. They're gonna see who all lives in that apartment, like everything. And that's exactly what they do. They check all the relatives and they get a driver's license photo of a man named Granville. Yo, okay, on some real shit. I'm sorry, but who gives birth to a baby and then looks at that baby and says, "I'm gonna name him Granville"? Like, that sounds like a landmark or something. You're at Granville Station. Like, I, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm trying to do better. But anyway, so they get this driver's license photo of this guy named Granville, and they get this info, and they're like, "I bet this dude Trevor is Granville that she's been talking about. I bet this is her man." So they take the picture of the driver's license to Ebony, and they're like, "Hey, who is this to you?" And she's like, "Oh, that's my Trevor." That nigga's name damn sure wasn't Trevor, but okay, she just don't know that yet. Now, this how stupid Ebony is. This entire time that she's at the police station, she's got her phone on her. And there were several times where the police just left her in the interview room by herself, letting her use her phone. Like, they knew that she was gonna call this nigga, and of course she does. So they sitting back like, all right, we gonna let her do this and see where she leads us with it. And so she calls Trevor and she's like, "Babe, I told the cops that you were at the apartment, but like I didn't tell your mom. They really need you to come down here and talk to them." Girl, you really think that this nigga who just did all of this shit is just gonna willingly come to the station and say, "Oh, okay, sure, babe." And so, she's telling him, "You got to come down to the station." The corporal actually ended up calling him around 4 o'clock that afternoon, and he tells him straight up, like, "Hey, dude, listen, we really need you to come in. We just got to ask you a couple of quick questions. We know you was at the apartment with Ebony before Sugar Plum disappeared, and we just trying to get to the bottom of this and find this girl." And so, you know, Trevor is like, well, yeah, I guess I can come, but yeah, like, I kind of got into a car accident. So if y'all can just like meet me at the Winn Dixie in a couple of hours." That was the excuse that he gave y'all. But, the corporal was like, "Bro, there's a kid missing. What you mean a couple of hours? Like, this is urgent. Why is it going to take you a couple of hours? You can't take the bus or a cab or something?" Like, I know Uber wasn't popping back then, but come on, bro. So, Trevor agrees and he's like, "All right, cool. I'll be there. Give me like 15 minutes." Y'all think this nigga actually showed up? Hell the fuck no. 15 minutes go by, then 30, then an hour. So Corporal Staley, he calls him back again and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? You were supposed to meet us at the station." And Trevor, he's like, "Oh, my bad. I needed a couple of extra minutes. I had to drop off a friend, one of my female friends, but like I can meet y'all at this nearby auto parts store in about 45 minutes." So the cops, they tell him, say, "Bro, like we getting sick of your shit. We gonna meet you at this auto parts store, but you better have your ass there." And so 45 minutes go by and he actually does show up. And they see that he pulls up in the silver Lexus. He leaves the car there and he goes with them to the station. And so he gets to the station and he agrees to do a videotaped interview. Oh, and at this point, Ebony has changed her story again too. Now, Gloria, she's still defending her son, telling the cops that, "Oh, well, I know Sugar Plum and, she was at the house and I was there with her." Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of backtrack for a minute because before any of this happened, earlier that day, there was a couple in Clearwater, Florida. Now, some reports say it was a couple, some say it was an individual, but majority of the documents that I saw were saying that it was a couple that decided that they were going to go fishing. And while they were fishing, they see something that's a little out of place and they look closer and they see that it's a body. A dead body. A dead body of a little girl. They immediately call the cops, and the cops come out there and they take the body. And later that afternoon, on May 17th, 2014, Detective Elmer gets a phone call from Clearwater Police Detective Carrie Spaulding. And she says, "Hey, we got a call earlier today that there was a body found off of the Courtney Campbell Causeway." So, Elmer headed to the crime scene around 3:45-ish. Now, this is before they picked up Trevor, and they go to the section of the roadway that's blocked off by the trees and the bushes and everything. And so she looks at the picture that the Temple Terrace Police Department had out on their bolo for Sugar Plum. And the more she's looking at it, the more she's like, damn, this looks a lot like this little girl. But they can't say anything until the official word has been received. But like deep in her gut, she knows, like, this is Sugar Plum. Now, fast forward a little bit. Trevor is back at the Temple Terrace Police Department, and he's still being interviewed by Corporal Staley and Detective Thomas Carroll. So he got this grand ass story together, and he says, "Well, I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what happened. See, what had happened was I met Ebony a few days ago. It wasn't really, anything serious. You know what I'm saying? We hooked up a few days ago. I ain't see her again until yesterday, and that's when I met the little girl. Ebony was telling me that, she was a bad kid and she was in trouble. And I told Ebony that maybe she should help her. You know what I'm saying? So we picked her up and, we took her to go get something to eat. And that's when we went to my mama house over in Doral Oaks. Ain't shit really pop off that that I know of. I put some cartoons on, and me and Ebony went into the room, but when we came out she was gone. And I told Ebony to go look around the complex, and we go check the car while I was on the porch. And I was kind of looking around, but she ain't see her. And then Ebony started freaking out, saying that Sugar Plum's family was gonna be mad at her. And so I just ended up bringing her back to the crib so that she could talk to the girl parents. After I went to go do my thing, I was trying to find one of the homies, and I went back to the crib and stayed there till about 11 o'clock. This nigga had a whole grand story, y'all. Like, he had everything mapped out. And so, when he's being questioned, he's like literally just sitting there chilling. Like, he actually looked annoyed at the fact that he was being questioned. I saw the video, and he was just sitting back, leaned back in the chair, like, wasn't shit wrong. Like, why the fuck y'all got me here? Like, real cocky. And so Detective Carroll asked him, she was like, "Do you have any idea where this child might be?" And he's nonchalant as fuck. Like, I wish I knew. You know, he tells the detective, "This situation is very complicated for me. Like, very, very. Ebony said to me, I think the little girl is struggling spiritually. I think she got demons in her." So, if she told you this, why the fuck would you deal with that? Especially for a chick that you barely know. Why would you even risk putting her in your car if she so called had demons? But okay. And so then when they ask him, like, well, if you saw that she had run off after y'all had sex, what did you do? And he tells the detective, "Well, I said to Ebony to drive around and look in the complex while I'm on the porch looking to see if she comes back." Y'all, they asked him if he even remembered the girl's name. And he was like, "Nah." And when they said, "Well, her disappearance has made the news," he flips the story and he's like, "Well, maybe somebody saw her walking and took her. I mean, I got 8 sisters. I cry for them every day. Nobody touch kids in Jamaica, man, because we got street justice." Little did he know them words was gonna bite him in the ass. Like, I swear for Eminem's, they was gonna bite him in the ass. So they're listening to the story, and I guess it sounds believable. It don't to me, but whatever. So he tells them, "I was trying to help her out. I mean, I don't really know Ebony like that. If I had known the little girl was gonna dip, I wouldn't have brought her over there." You shouldn't have brought her over there in the first fucking place. You barely know the girl, and now you putting yourself around a child. Like, come on, man. Common sense, be smart. If you barely know the adult, why would you be around a kid, especially if you know you're trying to fuck the woman? Like, that's stupid. Like, what? Whew. But then to top it off, this nigga tells the cops on some real shit. I thought that the only reason Ebony had told y'all that she was with my mama was because I told her to tell the truth. I don't really know what happened after I left. I was kicking it with this girl I know in St. Petersburg, and I was with her most of the day on the 17th. Like, y'all, I'm looking at all of these court documents that are available, by the way. I'm looking at all of this stuff and I'm looking at these interviews and I'm just like, damn, Ebony, this nigga flipped on you so fast. Like a nigga that you've known for 4 days. 4 days. And he has completely turned your world upside down. This man has lied on you. He gave you a fake name. He drugged you. He lied to you, fucked you on the first night, dicked you down to the point that you had gotten to go pick up somebody else's child because you opened your big ass mouth. And he finessed you to leave the child alone with him. And now he's blaming you for her disappearance, which technically is rightfully so. Both of you motherfuckers is wrong, but he's blaming you for her disappearance and not taking any accountability whatsoever. What the entire fuck? And so all of this is going on, and Detective Carroll gets the photographs of the body that was found in the pond, and it was confirmed that it was, in fact, Sugar Plum. So he goes back to Ebony and he's like, all right, listen, some shit has changed. I'm giving you an opportunity to tell me what happened. And he lets her know, we found her body. We found Sugar Plum. Sorry, but I got to arrest you. You got the right to remain silent. She agrees to waive her Miranda rights. Now, okay, she is guilty as fuck, like no question. But shit is coming to light at this point. Why the fuck do you not have a lawyer? You never interview. You never fucking say a word or talk to the cops without an attorney. Don't ask, do you need an attorney? Just say, hey, I want a lawyer. Boom. Shut the fuck up and wait for an attorney. But like I said, she done waived her rights. So the detectives come to her and they say, tell us what actually happened. And while Trevor is in the other room, Ebony is spilling her guts. She's like, okay, I'm gonna tell you everything. See, I met Trevor a couple of days ago and we clicked and me and Sugar Plum, we was really close and I'm their neighbor and Sugar Plum was like my god baby. So, when I met Trevor, we exchanged numbers and we started talking a few minutes later and he came and picked me up and we got high together and we had sex and over time we just really got to know each other and I was telling him about the things that were worrying me and he offered to help and he told me that he would help me talk to her because she been a little bad lately, so we went to go get her and we went to get her some food and we went to his house and I popped me a little molly or whatever and he told me that he wanted to get high, so I called my grandfather to buy me some weed off of him. And when I got ready to leave, I told her to come with me at first, but Trevor was like, nah, he didn't want me to have drugs in the car because I ain't had no license and he didn't want me to get caught with her in the car. So, I left her with him, but I came straight back. Like, I swear to God, I came back. I wasn't gone for no more than an hour. Like, girl, do you not realize what can happen in an hour? Hell, fuck that. What can happen in 5 minutes? And so then she tells them, what happened when she got back. She says, well, I called him before I got back to get the code to the apartment, but he wasn't answering and the code that I had didn't work. So I had to wait for a little bit before somebody else let me in. And when I got back, we had sex again. And I ain't really look for her. Like, I knew I probably should have, but I didn't. So, he told me to tell everybody that I had come to the apartment to take a shower at his mom's and that, that Sugar Plum had left on her own. But I promise y'all, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love that little girl. No, the fuck you didn't. Because if you did, you wouldn't have left her alone with a stranger. You wouldn't have left her alone with somebody that you only knew for 4 fucking days. Somebody that you ain't even know their real fucking name. At this point, the cops know that they got Ebony's ass, but they've got no proof that Trevor did this. So, early morning on May 18th, 2014, they get a search warrant and they go to the Doral Oaks apartments where Gloria lived, and they go in. And the first thing that they see there's these drag marks on the carpet from the patio area all through the kitchen. There's damage and scuff marks on the door, the wall, the kitchen floor. There's also these drag marks across the carpet and living room. And so they noticed that there was this like suitcase that was laying on a pile of clothes that was sitting kind of off to the side. And there's a pile of stuff that was on the floor, like somebody, like, when you open a suitcase and you just dump out its contents. That's exactly how it looked. And that was all they needed. So they get another warrant that they executed on May 21st of 2014. And this time they do a deep dive. Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, they see that the scuff marks on the patio were consistent with the scuff marks seen during the previous search, and that there's also impressions in the carpet and scuff marks on the opposite sides of the kitchen. And at that point, Detective Carroll, he confronts Gloria and he's like, look, we know you didn't do this, so you want to tell us what happened? And she finally confesses. And she says, officers, I gotta confess. The other two stories that I told you they weren't true. I don't know this girl, and I was never at the apartment with her. I don't even know this Ebony girl. My son just called me and he asked me to tell the police that I was with her. And that's my baby. That's my baby. I was trying to protect him. And so the cops are like, all right, bet. Detective Elmer, he goes and he arrests Ebony Wiley on the basis of providing a false statement during a missing persons investigation. And then Elmer also decided that he was going to take pictures of the silver Lexus and do a search of it. And remember, it was still at the auto parts store where he had agreed to meet them. So he left that shit. So they get the search warrant obtained by the judge, and he goes and starts taking pictures. And he's noticing scratches all alongside the passenger side door from the front to the back panel. There was plant debris in the headlight. Because remember, you had to go deep down into the causeway to get there to hide that body. And it was also stuck in the car's undercarriage. And so they impounded the vehicle and they take it to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. They go to Ebony and they ask her, do you remember seeing any scratches when you were in the car? And she was like, no. Was it sand in the car when you got in there? And she says, nope. So they were like, you ain't noticed nothing. Ebony was oblivious to everything. So over the next couple of days, that's when stuff kind of really started to crumble. On May 19th, 2014, Detective Elmer got medical records from Sugar Plum's dentist to properly ID her. And like I said, it was confirmed. Um, the autopsy was performed, and again, Detective Elmer went and collected the samples from the plants that were alongside of the causeway to compare it to the sand and the soil samples that were left inside of the Lexus. So, even though Trevor thought he had gotten rid of all of the evidence, he ain't do too good at cleaning out his car. So, the cops got a positive ID, and now they have to notify Sugar Plum's family. They call Felecia and, they go to her house and they tell her, hey, we found your daughter. And immediately she just broke down. Like she knew the way that they said it that her daughter was not alive. And she's just like, just please tell me where's my baby. And they tell her, we found her in Clearwater. There was a body that was found in the water. And it was confirmed that it was her. And she is devastated, rightfully so. She's crying and she's upset. And when the cops leave the family to grieve, Felicia starts thinking like, what the hell was she doing in Clearwater? Like she wants answers. And Ebony and Trevor are still at the station. The cops need to get a proper ID on this guy. Now, remember, Ebony still thinks this entire time that his name is Trevor. They're still waiting on all of the testing and everything. And a couple of days later, they call Felicia and they were like, hey, can you meet us at the police station? We're about to do this news conference. And Felicia agrees. So Felicia gets to the police station and she actually gets there like a half hour early. So the cops are like, all right, let's see something. They show her a picture of Trevor and they're like, do you know this man? And she looks at the picture and she says, no, I don't know him. Why? Did he have something to do with Sugar Plum? And they tell her flat out like he's a suspect. They tell her how he was with Ebony, and Felicia is hot. And shit, I would be too. So, you got some nigga around my kid, and I thought y'all were just going to get something to eat. So I give my child permission to go with you. And then the cops are showing me a picture of some nigga that I don't know. Like, really? This what you do? So that's when they tell her and Ebony who this man really is. Granville Ashanti Ritchie. Granville Ashanti Ritchie was born December 5th, 1978. He was born in Jamaica to Gloria Gibson. Obviously, we know that. And from the court documents, Granville didn't necessarily have the best upbringing. He was raised around a lot of violence and whatnot, and he was eventually brought to the States. Now, prior to the murder, Granville and his mother Gloria had just moved to Doral Oaks Apartments. Like, they've been living there for a couple of months. Now, this was according to Antoinette Donaldson, which was one of his friends since childhood. Antoinette grew up in Kingston with Granville, and she, said that there he was real quiet and shy, kind of timid. He never really hung out with anybody. She actually worked with his mother at the hospital in Jamaica, and then Antoinette ended up moving to Florida in 2000, and she started working at Florida Hospital Tampa. Now, a couple of years later, Gloria and Granville moved, and so they all ended up, reconnecting. Now, Gloria had several kids. I believe she had 10 or 12, because I know Granville stated he had 8 sisters and he had a brother. So, Antoinette is saying that she's known Granville for what seemed like forever, and she knew that he had a brother who may have been getting framed. She remembered that in March of 2008, Granville and his brother Trevor had gotten into an argument, and Trevor had grabbed a knife and swung it at Granville, like trying to take him out. Yeah, that name sounds real familiar, y'all, don't it? Yep. He tried to frame his brother. He gave Ebony his brother's name. Now, here's another thing. Granville had also been married in the 8 years that he lived in the US. He married a woman named Tadra, but he said that their relationship was kind of troubled, as he put it. Now, again, Granville's not innocent. He's got an extensive criminal record. There were charges for drug possession, sex with an underage girl, armed false imprisonment, domestic violence, sexual battery. But the thing was, he was never convicted of any of the charges. Either the case would be dropped or the charges were actually still pending when all of this happened. So he really fucked himself up because he was already facing criminal charges for sex with an underage girl. Like, he had actually slept with this girl like 4 times the month prior to meeting Ebony. And so once they brought him in for questioning on the murder, they knew that they had to, make those charges stick and hold on to him before he just fucking disappears. Well, because they couldn't arrest him immediately for the murder of Sugar Plum, since they were still waiting on all the evidence, they arrested him on an unrelated drug charge, because when they brought him in, they found ecstasy in his pocket. This fool still had the damn Molly on him. So he was held at the Pinellas County Jail, and they also, considered the 4 counts of having sex with an underage girl that he already had. That was enough to hold him. So he went before the judge on May 22nd, 2014. And, he's like, hey, I understand the charges, but I can't afford an attorney. So because of this, he couldn't bond out. And he had to stay there until he was transferred to the Hillsborough County Jail, where he, was charged for the murder. The people who know Granville, they're all shocked when they found out that he was the suspect. And, Antoinette is like, well, that's not the type of person I knew him to be. Duh. Like, I can't I can't take it. I can't stand to hear somebody say, "Well, they didn't seem like that type of person." And I never really saw that. Hello. Why I don't know of any criminal that's going to show you who they really are. They're a fucking monster. Like, they're gonna give you a representative of themselves. Like, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't go out there and eat people or anything in front of everybody. Like, he was on some slick shit. Now, he was a little creepy, but people will show you somewhat of, like, sweetheart, you Lord, she really said, I don't know him as a person who would do that. You never know anybody. Clearly, he showed you a representative of himself, just like he did with Ebony. And probably just like he did the other girl. Like, he not gonna let you see a murderer. Come on now. He would be severely sick to do some shit like that. But anyway, they were trying their hardest to make sure that they could link the murder to Trevor. And on May 29th, 2014, Detective Carroll ended up getting some timestamp videos of a traffic camera. Now, there's no traffic camera close to the causeway, but there were two cameras for the Temple Terrace intersection. And it actually showed Trevor, or excuse me, now we know him as the real person, Granville. It showed Granville in the 98 Lexus around 3:47 p.m. and then again at 10:51 p.m. on the day of the murder. Now remember, Ebony had taken his car too, so they checked the cameras and they saw that around 4:50 p.m., excuse me, she was going in the direction of her grandfather's house to go and get her weed. And then about 45 minutes later, around 5:39 p.m., you see the car driving around the CVS parking lot because Granville had told Ebony that he had given her money to go to CVS, to buy the candy. But the most damning evidence was the cell phone records. Granville's cell phone was pinging near the causeway between 11 p.m. and midnight on May 17th, and it just so happened that it was in the same direction as the photos from the traffic cam. That Sunday, Ebony is released from jail because their focus now is Granville. It took them 3 whole months to be able to charge him, but he is eventually charged on August 28th, 2014. August 28th, 2014, Granville Ashanti Ritchie is charged with one count of first degree murder, one count of capital sexual battery, and one count of aggravated child abuse. Now, it's not 100% clear why it took 5 years for the trial to begin, but Granville sat his ass in jail for them 5 years waiting for his trial. And on September 9th, 2019, he went before Circuit Judge Michelle Cisco. Y'all, Michelle is such a badass. Now, I know that name may sound familiar to y'all. If y'all remember, Judge Cisco was the judge that presided over the case of Ronnie O'Neill, like that real crazy dude that was yelling out in court after she let him represent himself. And she was like trying to tell him, like, yo, you really should get an attorney because he had been accused of killing his baby mama and his daughter. Like, he stabbed them with an axe and all of that. And then, like, he shot the wife and stabbed the son. And then, like, the son said it in the courtroom, like, you stabbed me, when he was like, oh, who was the one that, did it? He was like, nigga, you, fuck you, me. Yeah, that judge. So, like I said, she's a total badass. But, the case goes before Judge Cisco, and it takes about 2 weeks. The trial goes about 2 weeks. Several people testified, and I mean several people. The state prosecutor, Scott Harmon, gets kind of I guess you could say, an unlikely witness, none other than Ebony Wiley. Even though she had, initially lied to the police, she had direct contact with Granville and they felt like she would be a big help, which honestly, yeah, she would. But at the same time, I'm looking at it like, can you really trust anything that she has to say? The defense can use that to their advantage. Now, in the trial, prosecutors bring up their theory of what happened and they bring Ebony on the stand and she tells the story of what actually happened. And of course, the defense is trying to negate her story. And at one point, I guess you could say I felt some sympathy for her, but it was like really brief. Like, she told the jury, he sold me a dream. He was telling me about this wealthy future we were going to have together, but it was all a lie. Of course, bitch, he was just trying to get the panties. He was trying to get the pussy, and he did. It's a shame that all it took was a dream. Like you saying he sold you a dream. All it took was some words to for him to fuck. Like if a motherfucker tell me, "Oh, we gonna have a wealthy future together," baby, you just met me. Like I live in reality. How the fuck are you planning our future and I don't even know your real name? Get the fuck out of here. But, she says the only reason that she left Sugar Plum with him was because he, had this concern and he was giving her father figure vibes. She said she wasn't concerned because of how he made her feel on that first night. But, sweetheart, how he made you feel is different than a little girl. He made you feel good because you were high out of your fucking mind and you were not your best, like you weren't in your best state of mind. And so the lead prosecutor, Jennifer Johnson, she said, well, she asked her, she said, did you look around for Felicia? And Ebony was like, no, I didn't. And so the judge says, did you trust him saying that she wasn't there? And Ebony says, yeah, I trusted him. How can y'all, I can't get past this. How can you trust somebody you just met? You only knew him for 4 days. I can't get past that. I'm sorry. So, along with Ebony's testimony, there were other individuals that testified, such as Special Agent Justin Fleck. Now, he's a member of the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team. He was the one that was able to map the cell phone tower usage. He was able to pinpoint Granville's phone records, and he saw that he used them between 10:36 p.m. the day of the murder and a little bit like past midnight. And it was on the Courtney Campbell Causeway, of course, directly near where Sugar Plum's body was found. Then Dr. Christian Wells, a professor of anthropology at the University of South Florida, also testified, and he consulted with the Temple Terrace Police Department using the soils and samples that were found in the car. And he said that there was like a 99.5% match from the samples from the car and the samples from the causeway. And then Dr. Matthews testifies as well. Now, he's a scientist at the University of Florida, and he was also working with the police department and developed the DNA extraction. They had other individuals like Dr. James Claude Upshaw Downs testified, and he further corroborated the medical examiner's report. When the autopsy was performed on Sugar Plum's body, it was done by Dr. Wayne Daniels Kurtz, and her official cause of death was manual strangulation. But she suffered numerous injuries to her head, neck, back, and genitalia during the course of the rape and homicide. There was extensive injuries to her neck, signs of internal injury and bleeding in the neck and head, hemorrhaging of the blood vessels of the eyes, and deep injuries to her tongue that was like caused by the, I guess, forceful biting, which all shows that she was very much alive and conscious and struggling for her life. Like they actually said that her injuries to her neck were more severe than any other homicide that they had seen when it came to strangulation, particularly sexual homicides. Now, they said that most assailants would strangle to the point that the person almost loses consciousness, and then they would ease the pressure so that they come to. But with this case, it was constant. Dr. Kurtz claimed that Sugar Plum pretty much died within 5 minutes, but they couldn't give it an exact time of death because of the fact that the body was in the water, which kind of threw the timing off because of the, advanced decomposure. But the defense was also very aggressive. They wasn't going down without a fight. Granville's attorney, Bjorn Brunvand, actually brought Officer Dale Kelly of the Temple Terrace Police Department to the stand. And they moved for a judgment of acquittal, but of course it got denied. The officer stated that on May 17th, he interviewed one of Felicia's daughters, Jeremicia Williams, who told him that Ebony had like driven by their house that day and cussed her and Sugar Plum out. And that's why Sugar Plum showed up at her job. Supposedly Ebony was like, oh, y'all need to take y'all asses home. And that's what started the beef. And it didn't have nothing to do with Granville. And then on top of that, Officer Kelly testifies that, He's the one that did the initial description of Sugar Plum and how he gave the wrong measurements. So the defense tried to use that to say that it gave a false impact on Granville. And then the defense called Dr. William Robert Anderson, and he testified in the area of pathology as well. He's looking at the autopsy reports and the photos and everything, and he actually argues that the multiple tears that were in Sugar Plum's skin that didn't have any bleeding meant that it happened post-mortem. That's what he was trying to argue to say, oh, okay, well, there's no way that, Granville did this because this happened post-mortem, basically trying to, say that he's innocent. He stated that Sugar Plum didn't just die instantly and that someone either pressed their arm down or possibly knelt on her for like several minutes. And then he said that the injuries that they're talking about in her private area were from swabbing and not from rape. But here's the thing. The ME took a biopsy and said that there was no trauma in her private area and that there were no findings in the autopsy or the sexual assault kit or the DNA findings that even suggested sexual assault. Like, that was really weird to me that the ME said that. And so the defense is really trying to argue that, there's no case. Like, they're trying to get Granville off, which was, I was reading it and I was like, oh shit, he might actually get away with this. But then, the state called Dr. Kurtz back on the stand and he testified that the injuries to Sugar Plum's vagina were, in fact, due to rape and not vaginal swabs. And they did a second testing and boom, it was there. So they have closing arguments and both parties rest. On September 25th, 2019, the jury found Granville Ashanti Ritchie guilty of one count of murder in the first degree as charged. As to the murder charge, the jury specifically found that the killing was both premeditated and a felony murder based on the finding that the murder occurred during the course of a sexual battery on a victim who was less than 12 years of age. This is Florida, y'all. They do not fuck around in Florida. That's why I keep saying motherfuckers keep committing crimes in Florida and don't realize you're going to go away for life and then some, okay? Florida is on some fuck shit. But he was also found guilty of sexual battery and aggravated child abuse counts for the second and third count. So of course, it comes time for sentencing. And on September 26th and September 27th of 2019, the court then presented testimony and evidence from both the state and the defense to the courts. So the state presented the testimony of Felecia, Sugar Plum's mom, and Dr. James Downs, of course, and they introduced into evidence like these pictures of Sugar Plum, and they were so cute. Like, she was adorable. She really did. I can see why they called her that. She did have the perfect little brown round face. And, the prosecutors, they give their statement. When I read the statement, y'all, all I could think about was that speech that Matthew McConaughey gave in A Time to Kill. Baby, that shit moved me to tears. So this is what the prosecutors say. This isn't pleasant to think about. It isn't pleasant. It's not natural to sit here and think about this and walk through this. This is ugly. This is nastiness. But you have to think about this because you're considering what his penalty should be. And so ultimately, to be able to do that in an honest and fair and just manner, you have to consider what this little girl suffered and what she went through. Remember this when you're back there deliberating. Remember this when the idea of mercy maybe starts to peculate a little bit up into your mind. Remember that during these several minutes of at least 3 minutes to inflict all these injuries to her body, remember there was never, not for 1 second, relief for this little girl. She never had relief during this. She was suffering in excruciating pain from here to the top of her head, from her genitals all the way up. There was nothing that wasn't unpleasant, painful about this murder. He absolutely brutalized her. What this little girl endured, no child should have to go through. She suffered an agonizing death. This isn't a very efficient way of killing, but none of that stopped this defendant. And you can consider that when you're considering whether we have proven whether this is heinous, atrocious, or cruel, or torturous, because you can consider, like I said earlier, whether he exerted any mercy at all to her, any pity to her. So that is what the prosecution read to the jury, to basically let them know, like, hey, do not let this motherfucker get away with it. Now, because of the pandemic, there was a delay with the sentencing, so his sentencing hearing wasn't heard until September 11th of 2020. But, oh, that ass got what he deserved because Sugar Plum's family gets on the stand and they make their statements. Shaquilla, who is Sugar Plum's sister, she's wearing like this t-shirt with her sister's picture on it, and she was just on the stand bawling, crying, and she's telling the judge, she meant the world. She meant the world to us, and he discarded her like she was nothing. She looks at him and she says, "Your day has come. God got you now." And then Sugar Plum's mama, Felecia, she gets on the stand and she says, "I just want to say that I've waited 2,310 days for this day to come. I am here to stand as a wounded mother. I'm here wearing all black because I'm here to bury Richie today. My only regret is that I cannot ask for his fate, and that would be for him to be hung, for him to feel what my daughter felt." Mm. But the most powerful statement was from Sugar Plum's father, Jerome Williams. Y'all, when he got on that stand and he talked about, his own issues that he's had with the law in the past and all of that, it was what he said after that had me fucked up. He urged Granville to ask Felicia for forgiveness. And he tells him, like, "I forgive you. I love you. You're a child of God. But don't play with him because if you play with him, he's going to destroy you." Whew. I do not have that kind of strength. Like, I don't think I could be on the stand and forgive someone that did something so cynical. So I definitely applaud that man. Like, it was so heavy in there that one juror was crying her eyes out to the point that they had to take a break. Like, a couple of the jurors around her were, trying to comfort her. And like, she was like a kindergarten teacher, and just hearing the statements from Sugar Plum's family got to her so bad. The judge actually tells Felicia, when the judge starts speaking, she tells her, she's like, "I'm in awe of your bravery and your tireless advocacy for your daughter, and the fact that you were able to sit through this trial with the horrific facts. You're a better, stronger woman than I am. What has been asked of you to bear in this life is more than really should be asked of any human being." And, the state attorney, Andrew Warren, he's hoping for the death penalty. He tells the press, "Listen, in Florida, we reserve the death penalty for the worst of the worst offenders. And if the brutal rape and murder of a 9-year-old doesn't meet that definition, I don't know what does." Now that's facts. Listen, y'all knew I was gonna do the voice. I don't even know why y'all fronting at this point, like y'all don't know me. Anyway, so the defense attorney was arguing like that the death penalty would be too severe for Granville. And the judge heard the arguments and she kind of accepted some of them. For example, the consideration of his abusive and violent childhood that he experienced growing up in Kingston. She accepted that. The lack of criminal history, and that's only because technically he hadn't been convicted of anything. But when his defense attorney tried to argue that he was under emotional and mental distress when he killed Sugar Plum, Judge Cisco was like, "Nah, nigga, I ain't trying to hear that." But even with her accepting those, mitigating factors, it didn't negate from the heinous crime that he committed. And on Friday morning, September 11th, 2020, Granville Ashanti Ritchie, was sentenced to death. And Judge Cisco, she looks this man in the eyes and tells him, "There will be no corporal redemption for you, your physical being, your person. You will remain incarcerated until the date of your death is scheduled to occur." Now, realistically, Judge Cisco don't sound like that. Like I said, she a badass, but yeah, she's more of the rice paper persuasion. So sorry. I'm gonna do better, y'all, I promise. So Granville is taken to the Union Correctional Institutes in Florida, and immediately his attorneys file for an appeal. September 28th, 2020, an appeal is filed. Like, this is like 2 weeks after he got locked up, y'all. Or, excuse me, 2 weeks after he was found guilty and sentenced and, all of that. So they file an appeal, and his attorneys are basing it on mitigating factors of Granville having to deal with trauma in Kingston, where he grew up. They also tried to argue that because Granville was so meek and miney and tiny, that he would be a target, and that the area in prison was similar to that of Kingston, Jamaica, where he was raised. So the fuck what? If he didn't commit the crime in the first place, he wouldn't have to worry about being back in that environment. Like, come on, man. Then they tried to argue that his IQ was way below average and that he suffered from traumatic head injury. But the state ended up getting Dr. Loser to try to support it. Well, she diagnosed Granville with antisocial personality disorder. So it kind of like backfired on him, because she was like, yeah, he has a pattern of deceitfulness and manipulation of others for his own benefit or pleasure. His consistent irresponsibility with regard to his financial obligations and his lack of remorse for having hurt or mistreated others. He used the pattern of manipulating and using women in his life to financially support him, as well as the manipulation of Ebony Wiley in order to get Felecia in the first place. Dumbass. Now, because of this, the court found that there was no legal basis for reversing his death sentence. So, it didn't have shit to do with the victim impact testimony, none of that. Like, that motherfucker was gonna fry, okay? He just recently filed another appeal and had his hearing in February of this year, but I wasn't able to find any documentation, so I'm not sure if a decision has been made upon that yet. But he's very much still alive and at Union County. As for Ebony, remember, she was the star witness in Granville's trial. So she also had to go before the judge. She ain't go before Judge Cisco. Her trial was December 18th, 2020. Now, it was a much shorter trial, of course, and it lasted I think, like 4 hours. She went before Hillsborough Circuit Judge Samantha Ward. And her attorney was this public defender by the name of Rocky Brancato. He's telling the judge that he doesn't think she deserves jail time. And just like the victims, they got to make a statement at Granville's trial. Well, they got to be heard at this one too. And they lit Ebony's ass up. Charlicia Adams, one of Sugar Plum's sisters, she asks her, how could you be so stupid to leave my sister with a man you don't even know, that she didn't even know? I hope you rot in hell. Boom. Brenda Johnson, who was Sugar Plum's grandmother, she also spoke, and she said, you didn't call 911. Why didn't you call 911 when my baby was missing? And of course, Felecia gets on the stand, and she tells Ebony, even though it's been 6 years, it feels like 6 days. And Ebony, she's dressed in like this black coat. She's just sitting there crying her eyes out. And she's like, I'm sorry, I made a wrong decision, a not thinking decision. I'm so embarrassed and heartbroken. Now, she had originally agreed to plead guilty back in October 2020 for a charge of providing false information during the missing person investigation. So, in exchange for that and her testifying, the prosecutor said that they would request a sentence of no more than 6 months in jail, followed by 5 years of probation. Yeah, Felicia's family definitely was pissed about that. They did not agree with that at all. Okay. They felt like it was just not enough. It wasn't a good punishment. But, they kind of had to accept it because she was the star witness in the murder trial that helped put Granville away. And so the assistant state attorney, Scott Harmon, he agrees. He tells the judge, hey, we might not have been able to get that conviction of Granville had it not been for her testimony. But at the same time, he's like, let's not forget the fact that this bitch did change her story like 3 times. You know what I'm saying? So, Assistant Public Defender Rocky Brancato presented testimony from Peter Burton, who was the psychologist. Now, this particular psychologist was saying that, Ebony was suffering from depression and post traumatic stress as well as other problems. And, supposedly Ebony had this history of mental illness. And because of her actions, she's getting threatened. He's like, listen, people see her as a pariah. People hate her because of what she's done. And that's a level of punishment that, in of itself, is unrelenting. And then Ebony goes to speak to the judge. This goofy bitch. So Ebony goes before the judge and she's apologizing. And she's telling the judge that she wants to be a good mom to her two kids. And the judge is like, well, why don't you deserve jail? And Ebony tells her, because it wasn't intentional. And Judge Ward is like, what? It wasn't intentional for you to lie? And Ebony says, well, I didn't do it on purpose. Um, yeah, the judge was like, "You did do it on purpose though." And Ebony, she's just like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't deserve this. I'm sorry. I don't deserve this. I shouldn't have to go to jail." And again, I start thinking,
You done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
well, apparently Judge Ward agreed because she was like, "You can keep your sorries. That's the wrong answer." And moments later, Ebony is led away in handcuffs. She gets sentenced to 75 days in jail, which she served, as well as 5 years of probation. So I think she'll be done with probation like mid 2026, I'm assuming. As to what she's doing in her life now, I wasn't able to find anything on her. So hopefully she and her children are, living their life and she done got her shit together. And I'm hoping that homegirl learned to heal. Like the really sad thing though was after all of that, on September 2nd, 2021, literally less than a year after Ebony is sentenced, at the age of 47 years old, Felecia Nicole Demerson passed away, leaving behind her mother Brenda and her children. And like that's so crazy how she just passed away so suddenly. I saw some like clips online and some pictures of her in the hospital. I don't know if it was COVID related or what, but she passed away. And I kind of felt like it was like she stayed around long enough to make sure that her baby got justice. Like she lived long enough to make sure that the man that was responsible was put behind bars and that the woman that was responsible for putting her daughter in that position in the first place received, some type of punishment. Like I can only imagine the pain that her family's feeling. Like especially Shaquila, because you lose your sister and then 6 years later you lose your mom too. Like it's in a weird way, I guess you could say that, Sugar Plum is now with her mom and she's happy and her mom can look after her, in the eternal life. But, it was just so weird how that happened. All right, y'all. So now it is time for fair or foul. And y'all know we're going to look at the sentence. And of course, y'all know right off the bat, the death penalty that Granville got, definitely deserving. Fair as fuck. You brutally raped and murdered a little girl. You didn't know her from a hole in the wall. You were this cynical, duplicitous, asinine individual that preyed on women. You lived your entire life wanting women to take care of you, you sick, sadistic fuck. You can never hold yourself accountable for the shit that you did. And then you meet a bitch and you basically drug her. Like what? You couldn't fuck her sober? Were you lacking something? You couldn't handle it without having her completely out of it. Then you turn around and you take a child that doesn't belong to you and you hurt her. You raped her. You stole her innocence and then you stole her life. You talking about street justice. Like if you did have street justice, then your ass would be dead 7 times now, motherfucker. I hope that while you in prison with your 5'8" meek little ass, that you getting bent the fuck over every night. I hope that they fuck your little booty hole until it rips the fuck apart. I hope you get TD Jakes swallowed up.
Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Have you gone through a time of swallowing?
And I hope that's exactly what the hell is happening to you every damn night. I hope that with all of the publicity that this case got, that everybody in prison is getting a turn on your ass. I hope that you can't sleep at night because you so sore. Like that you constantly got to look over your shoulder because that baby didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve what you did to her. No child deserves that. And I speak as a child abuse survivor. I speak as an advocate for child sexual assault survivors. That shit is traumatic. You deserve everything you get and then some, you sick fuck. Okay, sorry, y'all. As for Ebony and her being sentenced to 75 days in jail, I call foul. Yes, everybody is deserving of a second chance. Yes, maybe her self esteem was that fucking low to where she was just so desperate for a man. But you knew right from wrong. You knew that you should have never left that man by himself with her. You never should have had him around her, period. You knew because initially you tried to to take her from him and take her with you. But he smooth talked your ass so fast that you just caved. Your love of dick was more than the love of your supposed godchild. If that was your godchild, as you claimed, and you really loved her, then why even bring her around him? If you were so concerned about, that if you were so concerned about her behavior, why not call her mom and just say, hey girl, we need to sit down and talk about this. But instead, you put yourself into somebody else's business and tried to be somebody's mama and took this baby. You took her away from her home where she was familiar, and you took her 20 minutes away to a man's house that she didn't even know. Didn't even have the courage to tell her mama, hey, I'm taking her to, my man house, whatever, whatever, or I'm taking my man. You had her call her mama and say, oh, we're going to get something to eat. You were so stigmatized that you didn't even think that being gone for an hour to go and buy some weed was a setup. It didn't hit you to say, you know what, maybe I should take her home first and then I can go and get the weed so that way I could really have some fun. Because if you were thinking of getting high, what that tells me is that if Sugar Plum was still in that apartment, even if he hadn't have done anything to her, you wouldn't have cared. You would have gotten high and been smoking around her and fucking in the apartment while she was there. Still putting her at risk, still doing stupid shit, still not thinking as a parent, still not using your fucking brain. So I call foul because you are the reason why she's gone. Yeah, you testified in court to help put him away, but think about this. Had you not put her there in that situation, there wouldn't have been anything to testify against. As women, we have to do better, especially when we're dealing with a man and we know that we have children or godchildren or a minor period in our care. This happens way too many times. In some cases, the children survived, but in this one, she didn't. I have kids and I've never brought a stranger around them and thought about smoking weed around them or let alone fucking a nigga around them with a stranger that I barely know. Because first of all, I'm not gonna bust it open for a stranger that I barely know. But I don't know what a man is capable of. Any man that I was involved with, best believe my black ass did background checks. I sure the fuck did. Any nigga I have ever fucked with, I have done a background check. Y'all think I'm playing, but I'm dead ass. My man now is the best when it comes to my boys. But trust and believe, I wouldn't have just left him alone with them in the beginning. Hell, we were together for over a year and he still wasn't left alone with him. Not because I felt like he was going to do something, but because I'm a mama. I'm protective of my kids. I made sure that I put them first. And I wish that this is the mindset that you would have had with her. But now you get the pleasure of walking around and being a mom to your kids. But Felicia doesn't get that joy with her daughters anymore. Her sisters don't get that joy of watching her grow up. Yes, she still has other daughters that are here, but one has been taken away because of your actions. And I think you got off way too easy. All right, y'all. That is all for this week's episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. Whew, y'all, this one was a long one. Y'all keep wanting these long episodes. Y'all got an hour and a half today. You can follow the show on various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. And that's a number one, by the way, not spelled out. You can leave a review there. On Twitter, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can send a friend request to the page The Infamous Ones, or you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group. But please be advised, if you don't answer the questions, I'm not letting you in. Like, stop trying to get in there and not answer the questions. Damn. Anyway, but once you do get in, y'all know what it is. We chop it up in there. We have fun. That's simple. Um, I do giveaways and everything. I'm gonna announce the $50 Amazon gift card winner today in the group. So y'all stay tuned. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. Leave a review, people. It only takes a few seconds. Y'all, I swear, y'all hate leaving reviews. Like, my Apple Podcast reviews be so low, they scares like my edges. Like, can y'all do that for your girl? Can you leave a review? Just a little one, please. Appreciate it. And speaking of reviews, this one comes from Jamie Renee from the Facebook group, the discussion group, and it's on last week's episode of Lionel. And it says, "Okay, y'all, so I remember this Lionel story being all over the news. I remember saying to myself that this kid didn't deserve jail time because he was a child himself. But after hearing the whole story, gasp, I'm done. One, his mother failed him. He literally was a walking red flag. He should have gotten help way before this incident. Two, his mother failed that baby. If you didn't want to watch the baby, you should have just said that. No way am I going to a whole different part of the house to sleep if I'm babysitting, shaking my head. Three, Lionel had all the chances in the world to do right and still ended up in prison. However, I don't think he did the robbery. That was his homie. They railroaded him like they did OJ. Laugh out loud. Couldn't get him for murder, so let's go ahead and charge him for a robbery. Laugh out loud. It's funny that she mentioned OJ because, listen, did y'all see that tweet that Caitlyn Jenner did when OJ passed? Talking about some good riddance, hashtag OJ Simpson. And then somebody said, not too soon, Mrs. Doubtfire. I fucking died. Oh gosh, that's some irony. Oh gosh. Okay, sorry. That was the only new review this week. So this is why I say leave reviews, people, because these reviews be hilarious and I like reading them. Now, if you want to support the show or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that, that liquor done hit you that we've been sipping on, please click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe. Subscriptions start at $4.99 and it gives you access to the stuff that listeners don't get from behind the scenes and all of that. Y'all know in May, I'm going to be dropping some stuff for the subscribers. You can also donate via our Cash App at $infamous one pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. Donations go toward new recording equipment because y'all know I done already went through 2 microphones with my loud ass mouth. Why y'all playing? Although I do appreciate the donations for the snacks though. Much appreciated because y'all know I love me some popcorn. If you have a case that you want to hear more on, that you feel that has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, or if you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUSONEPOD@gmail.com. Once again, people, please share, 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 share. Y'all are sharing the shit out of this podcast, and I love it. This podcast is growing so quick, y'all. Y'all are making me so proud. Thank you so, so much. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a new episode. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.